Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of that NextGen Planners podcast. Or maybe this is your first time. If this is your first time, welcome. Come on in, sit down, make yourself comfortable. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I do say us because it's not just me who hosts this podcast. I have two brilliant co-hosts who always are here by my side to make sure that we ask the right questions. The first person is Taylor Beavis. Welcome.
Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Clara Metcalf, welcome.
Good morning.
How are you doing? How are you both?
Sleeping.
I know this recording is happening first thing, which is always, are you more alert or does it take you a little bit more time to get into the day?
I'm alert. Today I'm alert.
I've had 2 coffees, it's not enough.
Two cold years?
Two coffees.
I need like at least 5, I think, before the brain cells start firing.
Taylor thought you said cold years instead of coffees.
Been 2 cold years.
2 cold years.
That's what it feels
it's
like.
freezing out here, guys. Well, yeah, I think I'm doing all right. I've got my heated blanket, which is my secret weapon to good mornings, because I'm not cold anymore, so I'm doing fine.
I think the hilarious factor about this is this could be airing in like August, and they'll be like, "Where are you guys?"
Yeah. It's the Arctic.
Why is it so cold?
To be fair, it's probably still freezing cold in summer as well. So that's the UK for you. I know when I was up in Edinburgh in every August, I've had to buy a puffer coat because I've not brought one with me, because I thought it will be fine. There's no way I'm going to need a puffer in August. And every single time I end up having to go to like Primark or something, because I'm like, I don't need another puffer, but I need one right now. Not very sustainable though, is it? But I'll remember one next year. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking and let's bring on our brilliant guest for this episode. We are joined by the one, the only, it's Steve Nelson. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
How are you?
You're all like reaching a level of effervescence that I can't hope to match. I'm a guy from Fife in his 40s, so I'd quite like to just anchor that right now and set expectations. And yeah, I'm really cold as well. Like, it's the end of February right now, and I'm just outside Edinburgh. So we're based in Leith, the People's Republic of Leith, which is just down the road from Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So yeah, I endorse your jacket buying needs.
It's ridiculous. Also, if it's cold in Edinburgh in August, it must be Arctic right now.
Yeah, it's the wind that gets you. It's the sun came out yesterday and we all got quite excited. It was like, Plato's cave. But yeah, it was, you dare to step outside. But it's fine. Yeah. We deal with it. We're used to it. Yeah. It's got
Well, there you go. Just grumbling away, and we'll bring the energy for you. Then this is our role. By the end of it, you'll be skipping down the windy, cold streets of Leith. That's my goal. But to kick off the episode properly, then we always ask our guests to set a question for the next guest at the end of the podcast, and your question was set by Liz, and she wants to know, if you were a sandwich filling, what filling would you be and why?
Or topping, depends how you have a sandwich.
Sorry.
Is this like, can I ask a qualifying question?
Sure.
Is that acceptable? Is this from the perspective of like which sandwich filling I resemble the most, or which I would desire to be? Ooh. I feel there's not been enough detail to rather than that.
I think characteristically resemble rather than physically resemble. So what sandwich filling or topic is your soul saying that you are? What sandwich topping do you identify with the most?
I think a solid bacon sandwich. Reliable, solid. occasional moments of hilarity. Yeah, I think so. I think it's nothing too fancy. Like I'm a Scotsman and from Fife, so it can't be there. No avocados going on that sandwich, right?
Oh no. What sauce? Or no sauce?
Great question.
Sauce. I led a relatively sauceless upbringing, which is quite interesting. But now I'm barbecue only.
Oh, me too. Yes, that's my
That's
favorite sauce. And so
gross.
many places don't do that.
Yeah, I'm still living off a third bottle of barbecue sauce I saw in the middle aisle in Aldi, just down the road from the Langcat office. I got to the middle aisle and it said it was 9p. I thought this has to be a typo, right? But the use by date was like well off into the future, so there was no concerns there. I thought, can't be 9p, so I got 3 just in case. But it was 9p. I wish I'd got 10 of them, but it was too
What?
late.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Was this an error? Is there something bad going to happen? Who knows? But
It's crazy.
We're
Yeah, so
still
you're
okay.
buying like top quality barbecue sauce then. You're really investing in like the real good stuff for a whole 9p per
Can't
bottle.
resist a bargain. Can't turn away from a bargain, though. You know, I could be the richest, most successful Scotsman in the world, but I'm still, my
Yeah.
DNA says bargain.
Get 10, and you're still on it. It's still lasting you.
Still on it. I'm on 3 of 3, and this was last year at some point. So
Wow.
yeah, well, I will never see those days again. But
Just
No.
imagine if you got 5, you'd still have loads to go.
yeah, I'd be looking at summer probably. But hey,
You live and you learn. You live and you learn. What can you do? Well, that's a great answer. I'm very impressed with that answer. I think we all tried to answer it last time, and your answer's way better than all of ours. I don't know what we were saying. But and anyone want to add anything more about sandwiches before we move on?
No. I think we'd gone crazy by that point, hadn't we? So we were just nuts sandwich ideas. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we should spare everybody this morning.
probably. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to what they came for, the nitty gritty, the good stuff. Because you will have published by now, yes, a brilliant new piece of research, State of the Nation piece of research by the Langcat, which looks at the whole profession / industry. We'll get into that discussion maybe in a bit. Looking at all areas of I'm going to say profession for now, and what people are finding hard, what was going well, different job roles within the profession. I mean, let's kick things off. When doing this whole, it's a massive undertaking to kind of put a survey out like that. Is there anything that like surprised you the most that from the information that you were getting back? Is there a piece of an answer to a question? Was there something that came up that you didn't expect, or something that didn't come up that you thought would happen? Yeah, what surprised you most?
Excuse me, there's always stuff that comes up, but I guess it's important to say this is wave 7, right? So you're constantly building on a body of insight and an understanding of the profession, and it really is intended to be. I look at what makes the people tick, what problems you face in your careers, looking at from all kinds of different perspectives across your day-to-day working lives. It's not just about product and service and ratings and all that kind of stuff. Increasingly, we're looking at the different dynamics between different roles in the profession. So trying to demystify this notion of advice as being this amorphous advisor persona, right? When you 3 know better than I do, right? That it's about business owners and the dynamic of that skill set versus planning, versus directing a business, versus paraplanning, versus compliance, versus investment construction, whether that's insourced or outsourced, blah 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 blah. So the stuff that really, really fascinates me now when I'm looking at the research is some of that interpersonal stuff. And one really interesting thing that came to mind as you were asking that question, I wasn't expecting you to start with that, which is cool, was when we asked paraplanners specifically, what do you see your future career outlook looking like? And I think this stereotypical view of, I guess, people like me and people who don't work in the profession, who work in the industry, because it is an industry as well as an advice profession, but people who maybe work on the manufacturing side, either in platform or product or technology or consultancy like us, is we view paraplanning probably as an outdated bridge between starting paraplanning and your aspiration is to work in advice, right? It's a step here to here to here. And it was really interesting and perhaps shouldn't have been as surprising as it was, because I know quite a lot of paraplanners and know how they feel. That there was a 2-to-1 ratio in favor of future career aspirations in paraplanning to still be in paraplanning and develop that in itself as a profession within the wider planning profession. So it's it's fascinating how you can design a 100-question survey with all these big lofty subjects around technology adoption and centralized investment proposition construction, but actually the most surprising and the most interesting thing is like human-centric. It's future career aspirations for these people. So that was really cool to see that.
So is that saying that 2 in 1, so sort of 66% of paraplanners now want to remain in paraplanning and develop there?
Yeah, it was around 50%. So here's where you're really testing me. This is cruel because I don't have the report in front of me. I think it was round about 50% said my future is in paraplanning. 25% or so said advice. I want to move into an advice role, and the remainder say, "Oh, come on, I don't know. I don't know. And maybe it's outside finance entirely, or maybe it's I don't know. I don't know yet." But 2-to-1 definitively stating, no, it's in paraplanning as opposed to advice, which I think is just really cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting as well, especially in a time where the big discussion is, will paraplanning have a place in this profession? We've got the rise of technology. How much is that going to change the way that people, conduct their businesses, use different services? But if you have this whole group of people who are excited about that aspect of financial planning as an industry, are wanting to stay in it, they're going to find innovative ways to keep it relevant. Like that is, I still think that paraplanning will always have a role. But especially now, if you've got a good 50% saying, yeah, this is where I want to be, that's going to only make it better and better and better and better. That's a really exciting development that makes me feel really interested about what might happen next.
Yeah. Sorry, on you go, Taylor.
No, just touching on what Amelia was saying, I was just going to add that I think it's really interesting, wasn't it, in your report about AI specifically, what you're kind of alluding to, that paraplanners were quite bullish in their approach around seeing it as almost an enabler, right? So I was going to ask you to talk around that and what you found from
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and there's also another thing I was going to draw on it within the paraplanning section around day-to-day responsibilities of a paraplanner. And actually it's varied. So the most identify as being all over the suitability process. And you would expect that a decent amount identify as being a crucial part of the annual review process. And then involvement reduces ever so slightly when you get into things like investment construction and centralized retirement process construction and maintenance and all that kind of stuff. But you kind of have to flip that data on its head and say, actually, the role of paraplanner can be different from firm to firm because they're a crucial part of the advice process. I take, as a very polite way you framed it, Amelia, I take a slightly more direct view. I think the notion that AI is going to remove paraplanning is a load of shit, frankly, right? I mean, if you take the viewpoint that the UK fundamentally defines itself in some part as a financial innovator, right? And if you look at the volume of platforms, the volume of technology providers, the volume of investment, asset managers and DFMs, blah, 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 blah. Do we imagine a future? Yeah, add AI providers to that, right? And technology componentry that can be slotted within an advice firm. Who's going to make sense of all of that? Who's going to do the research? Who's going to have that discipline of collecting lots of information and distilling it and figuring out how that works best in an advice process. Well, it's the paraplanners, right? By and large. So any notion that AI is going to remove that, I think is nonsense. I mean, it strikes me, like I've been in the sector now, God, when was it? In 2003. And there's always been stuff that's going to come along. Remember, we've got Amazon, we're going to kill the providers. Google, we're going to kill the providers. Blockchain was going to revolutionize everything. Now it's AI is going to take all of our jobs. And it's going to change stuff, right? It's going to fundamentally disrupt stuff. But if you look at what drives, from the consumer side, what drives a good advice experience, all the indicators are on things like peace of mind, interpersonal skills, behavioral coaching, all that kind of stuff. It gives you that sense of trust in the advice process. That's human-centric, right?
Mm.
I could be wrong. Like, I could be totally wrong, and I don't mind being wrong. But
I think you're right. And from I don't know, Clara, if you feel this, but from an advisor's perspective, I've thought about this quite a lot, and equally probably worried like some people have. But then all I do is kind of think about my clients, my own clients, and think, would they really sit in front of an AI bot that just tells them what to do? Or actually, are they wanting more from me? What are they getting from me that they're paying for? And actually, like you say, Steve, a lot of it is that reassurance, it's the conversation piece, it's not so much about the exact numbers. What do you think, Clara?
Again, I think it's one of those, it really depends on the individual. Some people are very happy talking to a robot. They're very confident. They will go do their own research. They would rather feel in control of the decisions that they're making. And AI very much supports that by feeding them information. Where we need to be careful is that that information is correct in the first place. But I guess if the finance industry is involved in producing those products that support that, then that's a really good outcome for some. However, there are people who don't have the time, they don't want to have to do all that research, and they just want someone that they trust to kind of lay out what is essential for them and leave out everything else. And I guess part of that is using more of those psychological aspects of our job to try and work out what is essential for that person. What do they need to know? What don't they need to know? And what's going to make them feel safe? And what's the quickest route to getting there, really? I think that's probably my opinion on it.
Yeah.
A bit waffly.
Steve, what do you think? Do you mind me asking your opinion on what do you think advisors are doing well at the moment? And then maybe on the flip side, what do you think that advisors are struggling with in their day-to-day business?
yeah, so I great question. I always come to a question like that with the full disclosure. I'm not an advisor, right? I'm not working in advice. I've got no right to tell any advice firm how to do their job or how to deliver advice. You're the experts here, right? I'm privileged to be on the fringes, and lots of people in the profession share time with us and help us make sense, and I like to think that we offer good insight in return. I think what the advice profession I observe is doing really, really well is you've never been in a better place in terms of the actual delivery of advice and the at the point of need. All the indicators are positive. Like we occasionally do consumer research for other projects. So we had a couple of big projects last year on things like the advice gap, things on trying to establish what fair value means from a consumer's perspective. Like your profession has satisfaction indicators, which are the envy, I think, of any other professional services. Increasingly find that 90+% think they're getting a good service that's value for money, that they have faith in, that they have trust in. I can't prove this, but do we think legal services, soliciting, medicine, any other like one-to-one professional services framework has the same satisfaction indicators? I would challenge them to come forward if they do. So I think that's excellent. And whenever I go to planner-led conferences, whether it's NextGen, which I went to last year, or other clearly inferior conferences,
Thank you very much, Steve.
I just look at what I experienced 15, 20 years ago, where it was product. And now I'm hearing all these incredible stories about how people got into the profession, what they do, what motivates them, the skills. I now see providers talking about this as behavioral stuff. It's rooted in psychology and all that. So you've never been in a better position in terms of the real value of advice, which is devolving responsibility from an individual who's probably overwhelmed and might not make a good choice and taking that on for them. So that's brilliant. Where I see the advice profession struggling is that intersection of being a lot of your, professional magpies, frankly, where you're dragged off in. Again, I draw the comparisons to other professional services where I don't think they have the range of just different skill sets and responsibilities and obligations that I think you both have, but also bring on yourselves at times. So I see small businesses that are trying to be, well, first of all, you've got to run a business. That's a skill set. Trying to be technology experts, that's a skill set. Investment construction, that's a skill set. So no wonder that's increasingly been outsourced. You have to deliver advice. You have to keep on top of regulation. Lots of your content creators now, communicators, man, that's a lot of different skill sets. So when you take that element and intersect it with the inefficiencies that are built in the industry, not the profession, but built inside the industry, so lack of integration, transfer standards, customer service standards, things like the letter of authority, and I'm watching Clara and I to see your gut reaction. So things like the stuff that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, I would describe the advice profession as being time poor, and struggling under the burden of all these different things that you have to keep on top of. I don't know if that's fair, but that's my observation anyway.
I mean, that's definitely what was coming out in your report, wasn't it? That the profession in general feels a little bit, I guess, disillusioned with the fact that we've got so much on us, and, the regulator has brought in consumer duty. And then one of the things that came out was the fact that it's sort of customer service of providers and stuff that's really letting us down. And I think that came out with the paraplanners as well. It's that advisors want things now. They want them super technical. And as you said, rightly, AI can help them do that and get that out quickly. But where they get stuck is the providers and the amount of time that takes. I mean, I know I get frustrated when I have to explain to clients that, the provider that you're with, it may take us, 6 to 8 weeks to get your information back. Worst case scenario, a few months. And it doesn't connect with that great service we're trying to put out there, that value for money we're trying to put out there. And I don't know if you find the same, Taylor, but when you have a client who's motivated, they want to make change, they're excited to get control of their finances, to then have a couple of months as a break while we go away and find all that information to then come back to them, they kind of, I don't know, they go off, they fizzle off a little bit, and that motivation is just not there anymore. And I think that's what kills the industry somewhat.
And I think you're right. And I think there's also a challenge for advisors to almost defend their position on that and say, it's not me. It really is the fact that I'm waiting for another company, because I think consumers and others really can't believe how bad some of these things are in terms of A's. I mean, I had a recent case for a client of mine where we're 4 months in now, and won't say the name of the provider, but 4 months in, and we have probably had, this is no joke, 25 different letters of bits of information when we just sent one request, and we've probably had 25 individual letters, and the stack is around this thick now. And it's just craziness, in terms of being able to proceed with the advice for that consumer. And at the heart of it, the only person that's losing out is the consumer, really. I think you're right, and I think it's a real challenge for advisors.
I've had to put in several complaints in the last few months on behalf of clients, not even just at the LOA stage, at the actual moving from one platform to another, the amount of mistakes that are made, and the fact that each department doesn't seem to communicate with another department. Things go missing, things take a lot of time, and then you've got the clients sort of calling you and saying, I found this, and you think, all you want to do is reassure them that we're on top of it and that we're doing a good job and they don't need to worry. And then you've got this kind of thing happening in the background, and it's costing us a huge amount of time. We're not getting compensated for that time by providers.
No.
And it's actually a little bit embarrassing sometimes.
Yeah,
So,
I'm occasionally reminded sometimes like, as a researcher, and I'm so grateful that so many advice firms have been generous with their time. But my favorite thing is to either visit the offices of advice firms or get a qualitative interview either via, Teams or Zoom or whatever. And I remember speaking to a lady, and sometimes you get conversations that just bring it to life. And I'm clearly paraphrasing here, right? But she said, we can have the best new experience for a client. We can have the best communication material. We can have a razor sharp level of empathy and communication style, and our own material, our own website, the initial fact find, it could be great. We can integrate technology with that, and we know exactly what we need to do. But there are instances where I hear a potential client mention a specific provider, and it's not just one, it's a list of them where they might have existing assets. And I just go, is it worth us having this conversation? Because I know the drop off in their experience as soon as I need to interface with these providers is so drastic that it compromises the integrity of my own processes. I'm like, man, that's a bad place to be in for the sector.
Especially post Consumer Duty, it still amazes me that the list of those providers hasn't changed, and it's still the bad offenders. It's just craziness, and I think it's such a barrier for advisors. I'm going to show you just for a laugh, so those watching on the podcast can see. No provider names visible here. But just honestly, because it's like an ornament now in my office, this was my worst case scenario. This is one policy. You imagine getting this before a meeting, a day before, and the client's like, oh, why can't we meet tomorrow? I'm like, well, I've just got that through the post. I mean, we're going to need to wait. It's going to take me some time.
Yeah.
And I've got to scan because they refuse to send it electronically. So that's got to be scanned.
it's like they've employed J.K. Rowling or something.
I know. Craziness, eh?
Really great. And I also think a good time to take a little break for everybody to process that. So we were going to take an interval now, and we will be right back with you in just a second. Hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying this current episode of that NextGen Planners podcast. In this short break, I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of a few things that we've got going on at NextGen Planners. Firstly, we have our brilliant Elements 2025 conference tickets now available. They sell out pretty fast, so you can go online, you can find out loads more information about our fantastic annual conference that happens every year. It's always so much fun. So we'd love to have you there, so make sure you secure your place now. And also, I'd like to mention business membership, which is a really exciting new section of our community that we've got for businesses who want to take their business to the next level. So do make sure you check out that on the website, along with loads of other things about our brilliant community. But that's it for me for now. I'll pass you probably back over to myself. Over to you, Amelia. Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. We still have the brilliant Steve Nelson here with us. We're talking about all of the interesting intricacies of the research that had just come out from the Langcat. So we've talked a lot about, and one part of the report, I think it said that challenging was the top word that was coming through from advisors. So I think we can kind of see, some areas of where that is and why that is. But I think the second and third words were like growth, and there were things that are slightly more optimistic, and there's an interesting contrast there between, clearly there's still so many elements that are frustrating and that people are finding tricky to contend with, but there's huge opportunity, and there's a whole new area that's kind of opened itself up with tech and things like that. In terms of, there's a lot of talk about innovation. In your opinion, in the research, is that something that is genuinely happening? Is that something that you think is, shifting and evolving the way that people do business, or is it just still talk and that's just a buzzword that people like to use? What's your opinion on that?
that's a really good question. This is where we have to talk about AI, isn't it?
If
I
you
know
if
we've
you want
mentioned it
to, I'm
already,
not
but
going to force anyone to use the dreaded word, but sure, yeah.
no, what was interesting from the data anyway is that adoption of AI has shot up year on year among the advice profession, and it's following a similar path to what we've seen in the past, where we are seeing advice firms look. I was going to say externally is not the right word, but it's for componentry that's not traditionally integrated within the big providers or traditional off-the-shelf names that one might expect, and they're looking for bits and bobs of componentry solutions to help the advice process. So this year we asked, I think it's around double the number of firms, is up to about 30% or so, who are either using AI already or intend to use it within the next year. It's like, I'm no expert, which is hilarious, because I did my degree, which I was really bad at Edinburgh University, was intended to be a joint honours with computer science and artificial intelligence. But I changed it after the first year. Not wholly, but it was slightly influenced, but it was a horrible building, and it was really smelly AI building. In Edinburgh Southbridge, it was a building that burned down. So if anybody's familiar to coincidentally burned down. So if you believe in the multiverse, right, there's a version of me that stuck with that. And I'm now like AI guy in financial services talking about it. Whereas now I'm like clawing on the fringes for interesting things to say. But certainly what the data tells us, there's loads of stuff being used already, right? And it's things like Saturn and Otter and Aveni and Avenir and Zero Key and names that nobody would have been familiar with 4, 5, 6 years ago, because these are startup organizations, and it's a real range of stuff, and it has so many echoes to and this is a bit of a bizarre answer, but it has so many echoes to the behavior I witnessed in the ESG boom 5 or 6, 7 years ago, where we saw the sector as a whole go very, very quickly into solution mode and off-the-shelf stuff mode, as opposed to really understanding wider concerns around best practice and research and security and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really long-winded answer, but there were definitely interesting things in some of the componentry that you see. Is it having a huge effect on the bottom line, on the deployment of advice, on the real like wider demographic challenges we have in the UK? Not yet. Like it's way too soon, and I don't want to dismiss it. I think loads of really interesting things will happen. But I think we're still at that more noise than impact right now, as great as these tools are, right?
So do you think, because I mean, I'm talking from personal experience here, having used a number of those that you've mentioned earlier, because they're a lot to do with meeting notes, follow-up emails to clients, things like that. The kind of stuff that actually AI can quite easily slot in and help with now. One of the things that I've heard a lot of people talk about with AI is automation. And based on the fact that we're in a sector where information, protection of information is really crucial, we haven't yet got automation that necessarily gets all of the platforms, the CRM systems, our back office programs where we store all this information. There's nothing yet in there really, correct me if I'm wrong, that actually gets all of these things to talk to each other efficiently.
And do you know what? Maybe by the time this podcast airs, there might be, right? But I agree with you, and that's why I come back to. I feel like I'm turning into one of these guys who's like cautious and bringing the vibe down and all that kind of stuff. But maybe that's just my role in life now. But it's data security and integrity of that data is so important. Like, so this is real stuff. This is people's hopes and aspirations and money and financial security in future, and everything that you work so hard to protect. And we have to make sure we understand where this data is stored, held, who is processing it, whereas it kept all this kind of stuff, because like looking at the owners across the globe of the large language processing models right now, do you trust them? Because I don't.
Mm-mm.
I trust
No.
people like Saturn and Avenir and Zero Key and Aveni, because I can look them in the eye and go, you're great people trying to do great things. But the wider framework on AI in terms of language processing and stuff like that, whoa, slow down. We need to develop our understanding of how we can securely embed all of this stuff within the sector that we know and love and need to protect. I think we're going to go through a period of discovery in the next 6 months, a year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years, however long it takes, before we see transformative impacts on the advice process. And like the like inter-provider glue that is keeping plans stuck in legacy products, and all the, that tree of paper that you held up to the camera a short while ago, the stuff that would really make your life better. That's where we need to aim for, but we need to urge caution, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, Clara.
I was going to say, if you were speaking to students who are studying AI and looking to kind of come out into the world and create something, not even necessarily students, but like people who are trying to fix a problem in the industry and want to create a product that financial services will go, oh my God, I need that right now. What do you think are the biggest pain points in the advisors that advisors, power planners, administrators, everybody that you've spoken to in this study? Where do you think they would be best focusing their time and energy to produce something that would actually make meaningful difference in our industry?
Translating data from translating and centralizing data from provider to provider and product to product, so that we had a single source of truth from person to person on what their financial holdings were, so that the velocity of money can increase. So by velocity of money, I mean billions and billions and billions of pounds wouldn't be locked away with a beleaguered profession going, do I have the stomach for the fight to transfer this? Is it in the client's right interest because of the volume of time I'm going to spend on this? I wouldn't have to sign 10 different letters of authority because I know I'm going to need them, because it's going to expire by the time I get there. It would be transformative for the poor people who have to work in the service desks of these organizations and go, well, I can't tell you that because I'm not empowered to tell you that. That's another department who deals with it. So I would get not just students in AI, right? I would get every CEO of every financial services organization to spend 24 hours on a service desk dealing with frontline inquiries for things like new business inquiries from advisors, things like bereavements, so that we could deal with people at their most vulnerable moments in their life with speed and integrity and empathy, and not this perpetual computer says no. That's what would have such a big impact and would free up so much capacity in your advice firms, wouldn't it? Like, and imagine what you could achieve. Imagine what we could collectively achieve in terms of the advice gap in designing different products and services if we could get this sludge of the sector turned into something resembling 2025.
Do you think though that all of those CEOs actively do want to be at a table like that, or is there a real reason behind why they're not wanting to give very clear information easily about their plans to then lose assets?
Yeah, because who's gonna sign off a business case where you're Mr. or Mrs. CEO, and these developments are going to make things much easier for assets to transfer out.
Yeah.
Or is that an easy business case to sign off? No, it's really not. So where do we turn to then? We turn to trying to drive consensus. Who's representing the advice profession and lobbying for change? It's an extremely fractured profession. It's a wonderful profession and full of wonderful people, but it's so lopsided in terms of X number of thousands of firms who are all different, who are 5, 6 employees or fewer, it's really difficult to drive consensus and drive change. Do we need to regulate it? Do we need specific targeted regulation saying you're actually not allowed to hold on to a product for more than 10 days or 14 days or 30 days? But the regulator doesn't do that. It's a principles-based regulator. It's not a specific regulator. So it's difficult, right? And that's the stuff that keeps us up at night, as researchers and consultancies going, really, what is the path forward on some of this stuff? And often it doesn't look very clear.
It's a shame it's not just a dear regulator letter that pretty much everybody in the advice firm in the advice world can sign, because you can send it to them. Would they actually even look at it? Where's the best place to kind of get change to happen from? It feels like you're just staying out into a void, really.
Yeah, maybe let's do it now.
Going on, this leads kind of nicely into the last question I have. Well, second last question, because the last question you're going to set a question for the next person. But you've done this now for, I think you said 7 years. This is your
State of the Advice Nation has been going for 7 years.
Yeah. So clearly you've got a real good sense of what the landscape has looked like, a real in-depth analysis of that for the last 7 years. What has been the biggest shift in trends, and where do you think it's heading? Having looked at this for 7 years, what do you think the next 7 years might look like?
So all the stuff I said earlier about the multiple skills that you need to adopt, all of that's really relevant. How time pressured you are, etc., etc. So what that has, not solely but in tandem with lots of other factors, has led to this transition from traditional product focus of the planning profession, but also the wider industry, to the behavioural, interpersonal, empathy-led, all the stuff that you talk about in conferences. That's been, I think, the clearest trend, and that's got, associated secondary issues like increased volume of outsourcing from an investment perspective, where more and more firms are going, actually, I don't want to run this ourselves. We actually can't do a better job, and we're going to outsource to, whether it's low cost passive or blended or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we're going to devolve responsibility to this organization and this body. I think that's continuing, and will continue. Did I missed the second part of your question, Amelia? I was too busy thinking.
Where are we going? So if that's the trend that's shifted up to now, is that something that you think is going to continue to happen? Is there some other kind of trend you think is emerging? What do you think the next 7 years are going to look like?
So here, right, I like thinking in terms of thought experiments, right? And what if, and I'm not sure if I believe this, right? But what if we've reached peak emotional behavior discourse for the planning profession? What if you reach a point where it would be unreasonable to learn anymore because you're leaning too closely into psychology and therapy and all that kind of stuff? What if you collectively agree that you're at a really great place in terms of competency for this kind of stuff? What if at the same time as that happening, the regulatory framework, the government framework, maybe we'll have another change of government, maybe taxation will evolve again, maybe there'll be more CGT implications, maybe we'll see increased usage of bonds again, maybe we will see the long-term care bubble start to hit, maybe we'll see the equity markets into housing equity, maybe we'll see a bit of a bubble there. Maybe, just maybe, we'll see a cycle of returning to more product-led discussions around things like integrated care and housing provision and insurance and protection. And maybe the advice profession will need to evolve slightly more back the way into product stuff, not the traditional stuff like pension products and investment products and all this kind of stuff, but just the blending of different facets of someone's financial life and the integration. Maybe the best advice firms will thrive on stuff like that. I don't know, because I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where the markets will go. I don't know if the government will continue to eat itself and, we'll get even scarier people in charge soon. Not going to leak my preferences, but yeah, worried about stuff like that, right? So yeah, maybe, just maybe, that might be the future. But I could be wrong. I'm just a guy from Fife.
No, I mean, I don't think I've had that as a perspective put out there. So I'm very lots of food for thought on my end from a lot of that stuff. But enough of that. We've got a more important question now, don't we? We need you to set our next guest a question to open the podcast episode. A question from you to them. Have you got any ideas of what you would like our next guest to answer?
So I think you've hinted that your next guest is a little bit like me in terms of where they're based in the world or where they're from in the world, but they're very much a financial commentator stroke influencer for a certain demographic. And my question is, I keep seeing Martin Lewis on the telly giving all this, it's not bang on all the time, and he does occasionally get things wrong, but he's well on top of the basics, right? My question to your next guest is, do you think that's legit? Do you think he has secret financial shame? Is he late with his car insurance, his house insurance? And the second point of that question is to your next guest, are you the same? What's your biggest source of financial shame that you would never leak out to advising your audience?
This is a great question. I love this question. What do you guys think of the question?
It's juicy.
It's so juicy.
I'm not sure they're going to answer the second part and tell us their weakness.
I'm sure. I mean, who knows? Who knows? She's. I think she might. I think she might. I don't know. I think he's got to have some kind of shame hole. He's got to have some kind of like secret bad habit. Yeah. He can't be.
I think a drawer full of missed payments for one account where he's like, you just can't help it because it's like, God, if this got out, I'd be ruined. So it's like almost like a source of excitement for him.
Or maybe he gets like loads of bills and loads of parking tickets, and he gets a thrill from knowing he can just pay them all off anyway. So he just accrues them and then just pays them all in one go. As soon as they're really close to getting bad, he's like, well, I'll pay them because I'm Martin Lewis and I can.
Or he'll contest them and find a loophole. There's some secret loophole that actually, if you do this and this and this, it means they have to give you money.
The Consumer Credit Agreement, 1990, whatever.
And then he gets enjoyment out of shredding the bills that he doesn't have to pay.
Yeah, it's very Joe likes it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to get sued?
Maybe.
Well,
character defamation. Well, we'll have an NDA and this part will be removed.
Yeah. Can't talk anymore.
Redacted.
On that note, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. This has been such an interesting episode. I feel like we haven't even, brushed the top of all of the information that's in the report. And I would encourage everybody to go have a read. It's a really interesting a piece of work, actually, to look at where our industry is at the moment. But that's all we've got time for today. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Clara. Thank you guys for listening or watching. Pleasure to have you with us, and we will see you again next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the NextGen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find all of our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website. Also, there is where you can find even more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help to grow the podcast.